Kevin, John and Paddy, and it's your Celtic State of Mind bulletin. Paddy and John, how are you getting on the day?
Oh, I'm buzzing, Kev. I've got the glory and the dream in my head.
Oh, it's superb, eh?
Fantastic. How good is that, man? Absolutely buzzing. I haven't been this excited since the football finished. I know some people have different tastes in music, but that's right up my street. So, yeah, no, I was loving it.
Paddy, had a chance to listen to it yet?
No, not yet. I've been at work since working from home since about 8:10 this morning, so I've not had a chance. But the first thing I do after I got off this, it's a wee 3-minute number into it, so have a wee listen to it.
Everybody who listens to that song, or anybody in the Celtic community whatsoever, they are in for a treat. This song is utterly superb. And when I was listening to the final mix this morning, I had hair standing up on the back of my neck at one point. The job that the lads have done has been absolutely fine. Oh, the lads and the lassies, because there is a backing singer on it. I can't remember her name at this precise moment in time, but I will do. It is a fantastic single, and we want everybody to get involved in it. Like, you buy it on iTunes, stream it, download it, do whatever happens nowadays. Unfortunately, there's no physical vinyl versions for us old schools who still have record players, but it is absolutely superb, and I can't keep on going on about it. Everybody's in for a treat when it actually debuts. It's going to be great, and I think it's going to be a staple of the Irish pubs up and down the west of Scotland, Paddy.
Oh, it's a banging chorus, man. It's absolutely, the chorus is superb.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's absolutely brilliant. The wee bit of narration, even the build-up and all that, you know, it's just superb the way it's put together. It's so professional. And it's not one of those sort of cringy ones. It's like a proper, you know, it's like they did a proper song and then put Celtic lyrics to it, you know, sort of way, you know. So it's great, absolutely loving it. And if I could find a way to get it playing on some speakers and off my phone, you know, I would be puking my neighbours already. Because it's a wee earworm that's been in my head all month. You can tell I'm a bit excited about it.
You're a bit excited about it. You're talking about some cringe-worthy football songs. Is there any, Paddy, I'm coming to you with this, is there any cringe-worthy Celtic songs that you hear recorded playing at Parkhead? I called it Parkhead there, that's just my age, that's me showing my age there, but that's it.
I'll fit in with my age and age bracket and call it Parkers for the rest of the show then, right?
Right, I'm taking you off.
Come off.
Remove. See? That doesn't happen. You're not allowed to use Parkers on this podcast.
Apologies, I'll go for Parkhead. No, none spring to mind. I mean, I'm a big fan of Rolling Down London Road. I think that's an absolute classic. The Scott Brown song, maybe that's a wee bit cringy, but it's quite funny as well. It's like a cult classic almost because, you know, he took the piss out of it in his final interview.
He did, aye.
I'm not too sure. I quite enjoy all of them. So I'll have to sit in the fence with that one and say I quite like them all.
4-Leaf Clover's mine. I just didn't think it works. I just think it's too forced. It sounds too forced. I mean, I've wrote plenty of number one singles, and I know what I'm talking about at times like this, but I just think it sounds awfully forced, the 4-Leaf Clover song. But I'm sure John McLaughlin who actually wrote the song, will go at that to me. Well, did you write Year 2000 for Busted and all these number one hits that John McLaughlin's had? So what do I know? I don't know anything, but to me, it just sounds forced, and I get a bit cringe when I hear it. John, any?
No, I don't think so. I actually don't mind the 4-Leaf Clover. I think it's quite good. There's none that spring to mind that make me go, gee, I can't listen to this again. You know, so I think that's a good sign. And they tend to change them up a little bit now and again. So I don't mind any. I think we've got a fairly good song, but we've got plenty to choose from, and we don't need to be. I think if people didn't like them, you wouldn't be hearing them anymore. That's it.
I'm not 100% sure about that. I sometimes think, and we'll get on to that, I think there's everybody's just got different tastes. Everybody thinks some things are brilliant and that, and like, There's never been anything dreadful, but as I just say, sometimes the four-leaf clover one makes me a bit cringe. I don't know why it is. It's just something about it. I mean, and also to give John McLaughlin his due, just so I'm not going to slag John McLaughlin here, who has been on a Celtic State of Mind and who's a big friend of Paul's. He did write The Best Days of Our Life. So that is a modern day Celtic classic, and
that's a very good song.
So for every one I didn't like, he's wrote one which is a way up there. Paddy Laverty, Paddy, nobody likes my poetry, I know, so didn't worry, didn't worry about it. What we'll do is, towards the end of last week, we actually started talking about Peter Lawwell returning as chairman, because somebody asked us a question on Twitter, and like when you say rent a ghost 3 times or you say Beetlejuice 3 times, it happens, it appears. So that's so it did actually happen on the Friday, and I'm quite glad that we weren't on live when it actually did happen, because I don't know what I would have says. But I've had a week to actually think about it now, and I've actually wrote down a big bit of paper. My thoughts, 2 sides of A4 on my on my thoughts on Peter Lawwell coming back. I says last week that he's never been away. His car parking space has never been empty. And I think that's been proven over the last few days after he's been appointed as non-executive director, non-executive chairman, should I say, because he's now getting all the credit for bringing Ange Postecoglou to Celtic Park. We now have the organisations and certain Celtic media sites who were always pandering Peter's propaganda, as I call it, coming out there with fluff pieces. And yes, I am looking at the Celtic Supporters Association here. And if nobody's actually read the chairman of the Celtic Supporters Association blog this week, please read it. It is pandering, and it's the reason that we probably didn't get anything done when you've got guys like that sitting in the boardroom, like taking the coin from the board. I can't believe that he's been. Everybody knows that the Celtic Supporters Association, or certain members of the Celtic Supporters Association, have been in the back pocket of Peter Lawwell since 2003. And this blog this week absolutely proved it. And I'm just weighing up other things that are going to happen. Other guys who are Peter Lawwell champions will come out over the next couple of weeks with stuff that's came direct from the finger of Peter Lawwell. Well, my thoughts are, it's a horrible look for the club, an absolutely horrible look for the club. It shows the arrogance and the contempt that us supporters are actually treated with. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, as Paddy mentioned last week, that we had banners and that saying, can we get like wall out, banker out and stuff like that. And our club have got the arrogance to bring the man back in, and for him to actually try and claim credit for the good stuff that's happening in the football club at this precise moment in time. The question I would ask would be, like, would he come back if we were 9 points behind? Would they announce that he was going to be the chairman if we're 9 points behind and Ange Postecoglou wasn't on? If we were 9 points behind and no champions, would we announce Peter Lawwell as the actual chairman? I don't think that we would. The other thing, I just think it's a horrible, horrible look, Paddy. I really do think it's a horrible, horrible look. And I was involved in supporter activism before, and I saw the way that Peter micromanaged the club. I've seen behind the scenes. I've seen the way Peter micromanaged this club. And for me, he will interfere, and he will also have the carte blanche to interfere because he's Dermot Desmond's puppet. That is, for all these people that are going, it's just a show title or just a show thing. I've seen Peter in action, and he will interfere, and he will get the carte blanche to interfere because he's there with Desmond's eyes and ears. He's there with Desmond's man, Paddy.
You make a lot of good points. Now that it's official, it's sort of it becomes more serious, and you need to ask a lot more questions than what it was last Wednesday when it was just rumours. Um, it's questionable whether a sort of a company that has a turnover of 100 million or so, or whatever it is Celtic would have the same CEO for 18 years. He then resigns or retires for 18 months, and then we bring him back as a chairman. How many sort of professional organisations as big as Celtic would have the same person running all their affairs, micromanaging, as you put it, being so involved with the club for 18 years without sort of innovating and bringing someone new in, like Michael Nicholson, who I think he's been at the club for 8 or 9 years now, but he's a younger, fresher face. He's got a different perspective on things. I know, is it the ECA, the sort of European board that Wallow's on? I mean, there's no doubt that he's got uh, sort of lucrative contacts within the game. He probably knows more about the running of Celtic than anyone on the planet. But then,
Including me.
Well, he's had more experience than maybe not the expert, but has more experience with the 18 years he spent. Just other things. They didn't announce it on Twitter. I think that raises questions. I mean, they obviously know it's unpopular, but I've done it anyway. The fact they haven't announced it on social media, they only put it on the website. They're obviously, I mean, they'll try to hide it as much as possible, but you can't really hide the appointment of a chairman. It's a bit lacklustre, but Ian Bankier wasn't my favourite board member. None of them are really, but I'm glad he's out the door. But I don't know. It just raises questions having the same faces, like a revolving door, like a sort of a boys' club. It's or a aye. It's a bit lacklustre, a bit disappointing.
Can I just add in there, Kev, going back to your original point, obviously I have quite a few thoughts on this. So going back to your original point about disrespect. So when Peter Lobel left, he left. One of the main reasons was because of how the board at that time were perceived, not just perceived, but actually did completely disrespect the fans, completely ignored them, kept a manager on in situ who was failing by all standards, refused to listen to anyone else, and essentially said, "We know best, shut up, serfs," right? So that got quite an aggressive reaction, and rightly so, because it was bang out of order. So in order now, just to make sure that we're not disrespecting the fans, what they did was sneak in the announcement after the AGM. So rather than announcing it at the AGM, right, and putting it up to scrutiny and having shareholders scrutinise it, they throw it in afterwards so that it can't be questioned. So immediately we're back to disrespecting the fans again. When there's such a feel-good about the club, we're shooting ourselves in the foot again by bringing back someone that doesn't need to be there, and dredging up all these old feelings again of disrespect. And the first thing they do is disrespect the fans, is disrespect the shareholders. It's an absolutely outrageous way to introduce a chairman. Totally outrageous. So, they sneaking him in by the back door. Whoever sneaks out, if you're sneaking your chairman in by the back door, you have made a massive error, or you're doing something egregiously wrong, right? So, over and above that, you're talking about the fact that people saying the role is just a non-executive chairman role. He's just there to control the board, all the rest of it. Yes, that is correct. So let's leave aside the poor governance point here for the moment and just discuss the role. So the role is to control the board and, effectively keep all the other directors informed, make sure we're hitting our goals, all the rest of it, right? And that would go well So what you need for that role is someone who understands the boundaries of their responsibilities, who understands the scope of their job title and exactly what that entails. And instead of that, we have appointed someone whose most famous characteristic is not knowing the scope of his responsibilities, refusing to accept the scope of his responsibilities. Our de facto director of football for 10 years, our de facto head scout for 10 years, and we're appointing this guy to the chairman's role, and everyone's supposed to blithely say, no, he'll be fine. He'll just be a figurehead. It'll be grand. No, it won't. Oh, he appointed essentially Michael Nicholson, him and Desmond. He would have been Mr. Wall's choice. So he appointed Michael Nicholson. So Michael Nicholson, since Dermot Desmond has left, there has been a sea change at the club. It's all been super positive. It's been fantastic. Michael Nicholson, despite the fact he's friendly with Mr. Lowell, and despite the fact he was his protege, has gone in a completely different direction and has done his job. And we've had this discussion before. Michael Nicholson understands what his job is. He understands what Ange's job is. Everyone has their own responsibilities. Everyone has their own departments. Everyone has their own scope. Don't overstep the mark, and don't think that you know about stuff you don't know about, right?
What I'm going to say there, John, you say that we've changed direction, right? Yeah. I think the only difference is, overall, our player trading model has not changed. Basically, what we sell to the 9 in a row team has funded Ange Postecoglou's rebuild. The massive change is the manager is buying players to suit a system. The manager is buying players for markets to suit a system, to suit the style that he's playing. And our CEO is not acting like a de facto director of football. He's not getting involved. He's not getting involved in that. But I would argue that our trading model hasn't changed.
The trading model hasn't changed at all. But the big difference in the trading model is instead of having someone acting as director of football, and chief scout, and doing all the contracts and everything as well, instead of having a one-man band there, that's what I'm saying. You've got people who understand that the model didn't need to change. What you had to do was make the model work. And you can't make that model work, first of all, without having a functioning football department. You need proper scouting for a start. You need a proper football department to back that up. You can't just have one guy who doesn't know anything except the phone numbers of a few agents. So, what we have now is the guy who can make that player trading model work, because he knows and has vision for not only his team, but he has an understanding of the wider markets and the wider footballing world. And so, he's looking at players far, far afield that we've never looked at before, because he has that knowledge. So between him and Michael Nicholson, the big thing that's changed is Michael Nicholson understands what he doesn't know, and is letting him get on with it, and has given him the money to go on with it so far, and has given him the faith that he will recoup that money, right? So that's what's changed. It's just the dynamic between those two guys. And now what's coming back into play is the fact that Michael Nicholson's former boss is now back over him again, and essentially, is he going to just let Michael carry on as he does without interfering? Well, you would like to think so, but we can only judge that at the moment based on evidence from the past. So past evidence, past performance, say, doesn't predict future outcomes, but that's all we have at the moment. And all we have at the moment is the fact that he will interfere.
If you haven't, Paddy, I think John makes a lot of great points, and I think one of the main points is you haven't been watching over the last 20 years if you don't think a guy the size and the who has the punching power of Peter Law will maybe just go in there and not try to shake a couple of trees. I think for me, what was really wanting, as they say, is Postecoglou's came in and says, Peter made the phone call to me. And that was sold as something else completely way. He who shall not be named, who has never spoke about anymore, actually says, I knew Mr. Postecoglou from my time working with Scottish Rugby. I think for me, it's the look. And folk will go, Peter, when Peter Law was the CEO, for me, when Peter Law was the CEO, he never backed the fans with S12. He never, but I was in a meeting when he says that he hadn't seen the 5-way agreement. And I'm not breaking any confidentiality there. I'm not breaking any confidentiality at all, because there was 120 folk in the meeting when he actually says that. And somebody for the audience actually shouted to him, Paddy, I've got it on my phone if you want to read it, and your name's on the email. Right? And that was shut down. He kept Old Firm alive. And again, in the exact same meeting, he actually says in that meeting, Rangers will not fail because they're too big to. That was his exact words as well. I think he downsized us to make sure he kept the brand Old Firm alive. And for me, the biggest thing that we can shake his stick at is this: we've won one European knockout game under him. He claimed that we were a big club. He claimed that we were a Champions League club, and we've won one knockout game under him. In the last decade of his tenure as CEO, we were an utter embarrassment in Europe, Paddy.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on the Europe front. I mean, I think it was like September 2003 he came in, and March 2004 was the last time we won a knockout game. And you can talk about the changing landscape of Europe. You can talk about, maybe if Gordon Strachan played managed in the UEFA Cup, maybe we'd have won a knockout game. We were maybe unlucky against Copenhagen and Bodo Glimt, but Bodo Glimt wasn't under him. But the records there to be looked at, and the lockdown season, the COVID season, is enough for any fan to look at and say, I think most people wanted Neil Lennon sacked after the derby and then the 3-3 draw at Aberdeen in the middle of October. And then he allegedly resigns in February, 4 months later, when we find ourselves 23 points behind or something. And the league is, it's a formality, really. We lose it 2 weeks later. When we had the chance to salvage it, he didn't move quickly. And then you have the cheek of Ian Bankier to come in 12 months later at the 2021 AGM to say, we get what we pay for, and Peter moves quickly. He doesn't move quickly because we should have sacked the manager. Again, all these questions about how much influence does he exert, what faculties of the club will he have control over? They snuck it out on a website instead of tweeting it. There's no press conference so far. I don't think there's going to be any press conference. It just leaves you with so much questions, and to shroud it all in this secrecy, it's typical of the way the club was run under him towards the end of his tenure. And I think what's also, what I remember, I don't know whether people have forgotten this or not, after we lost to our rivals under Ronnie Dyler in the semi-final, and everyone wanted him sacked, and Dermot Desmond goes out and gets Brendan Rodgers. Peter Lawwell done a one-to-one interview with his son, and everyone thought that was him sticking the boot in before he eventually left to go to Arsenal. And he never left, he stayed, but he just decided to talk to the son one-on-one, which is, I think it speaks to the character of someone when they're willing to do that.
Sorry, can I just add in there? Sorry. But I was just going to say, by the way, Kev, going back, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Barry. Sorry, I thought you were finished.
No, I'm finished anyway. On you go.
But the whole thing that's coming out now about he sourced Ange, he made the phone call, he got Ange. That's grand. So, how would you feel if I shoot you in the face, right? Take you in hospital, and then say, "Listen, here I've organised a fantastic surgeon for you. See you later," right? So he created the mess that Ange had to come into. He was entirely responsible for the absolute shit show that we had, that we were left with at the end of that season. We had no squad. We had nothing left. It was all of the chickens coming home to roost. All of the lack of planning. All of the lack of vision, all of the lack of foresight, all of the lack of listening to reason, all of lack of hearing any other voices, all of these things coming home to roost, and the constant managed decline of us in Europe, which is essentially what it was. He was keeping us just in front in a 2-horse race where one of the horses had been shot, right? So that's what he was doing. Because
it was good for business, John. It was great for business.
But I mean, and people say, oh, we had so much success and all the rest. Aye, would we have had that success in any other era? Look at the era that he was in. Rangers are dead, right? Our biggest rival is dead, right? And and yes, we won trebles aplenty and all the rest of it, and that's fantastic. But we have to measure ourselves. Are we then measuring ourselves a domestic success in a one-horse race? Is that what we're measuring ourselves with, right? So you have to be looking at, and as fans, I'm grateful for every single win. I'm grateful for every trophy. But you have to be looking further afield. You had to be looking at Europe and thinking, right, we can do this, and generating more income, and looking at for something more than the rivalry with Sevco to keep us, generating money. And I think has been proven over the last period. We don't need them at all. We could work plenty well in Europe. We don't need them at all. And his model of keeping us tied to them is bankrupt, and it was bankrupt a long time ago. And look, obviously, it just irritates me a bit.
John,
if he comes back and does his job as he's supposed to, it won't be any harm. But again, then there's a whole other thing, Kev, which I'll let you get a word in, but there's a whole other thing here about the corporate governance side, which is, again, bang out of order. Bang out of order.
I think as well, I don't think Banky had on the corporate governance side when Peter Wall was the CEO correctly either, but that's a complete and utterly different thing. I mean, what you've got to remember is, well, the banners of shame up the top tier, they were there under Wall's era as well, and that was a lack of ambition that we went pushing forward. But they would point to it, and I've been in meetings when he has pointed to it. That was the fact that the Celtic fans needed Rangers. That was nothing to do with the business. That was nothing to do with him. The fact is, Rangers won the there, so the Celtic fans didn't turn up. That was the view of the boardroom at that point. I mean, what I would probably say, I mean, you've got to, he's turned us on his pseudo accountants, ain't he? We all lube ourselves up for transfer windows, seeing how, and we all get excited about transfer fees now, Paddy. We all get excited about how much we're going to get, how much we're going to get for Josip Juranovic. I mean, the guy's been great in the World Cup, and we're actively trying to sell him and wondering how much money we can get. That's Peter Wall's legacy. We're all accountants now.
I know. It's just, I think, unfortunately, it's just how we have to compete on the European level. We have to do this player trading thing. Every club, apart from, the 5 or 10 that get handed the Champions League trophy almost every season, have to do this in order to try and make a name for themselves. It's an utter failure in Europe anyway. I mean, since Gordon's tracking, we've done absolutely nothing in Europe. I think he described us as a Champions League club, and then quantified that by saying you need to qualify 3 out of 4 seasons. I don't think we've done that since 2008, which was 5 years into his tenure. I think if Ange stays, I think we'll continue to win the league, and I think we'll continue to qualify for the Champions League. How long is Ange going to stay? And then the really big worrying question is what happens to the club after Ange decides to leave. That's been my fear ever since Ange walked in the door, really, because I totally trust him with the football, the team, managing the team, taking full control of Celtic. But what happens to Celtic once he leaves? Because he's like the sort of the jewel in the crown almost, and the crown is Peter Lawwell, so we're trusting these guys who almost, I mean, they presided over a complete shambles 2 years ago, and they're still in charge to pick the next manager and take control of the football department once Ange goes. And it's a worry. I'll be honest, it's a worry.
But everything's all right because it's fine. Everything's fine. But then, I mean, one of the reasons I'm not really involved in fan activism anywhere is apathy of the support, who are quite happy to get tickets for games and are quite happy to beat Kilmarnock 6 or 7-0 when I want to get to a European final again. And I believe that we should be in European finals again. And all the things about Peter Wall, for me, I will always bring back the European one. I will always bring back the European one. We utterly failed in Europe when we had a clear run at Europe. We had a clear run at Europe for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and we utterly failed in Europe. I'm going to go to some of the comments here. Are we in danger of turning this, Michael McDonald? Are we in danger of turning this into something it isn't? Hopefully we are turning this into something it isn't, and things just carry on regardless. And Peter Wall doesn't interfere. I want you to be right, Michael. I really do want you to be. I really do want you to be right. Paul Andrew Martin, if people believe Wall has never been away, then what's the problem? Things at the club are on the up.
Okay, sorry, can I answer that?
Go, John, when you go.
Yeah, okay. So if Law's never been away and it's not a problem, why isn't he still away? So if he doesn't want power in a more formal way, if he doesn't want to be involved and get his tentacles around it in a more formal way, why doesn't he stay in this advisory capacity, which he supposedly was in, but yet in an informal way? And I know he was still involved for a fact, right? But, why is he now taking this on? Then what's the problem? Things at the club are on the up. Things at the club are on the up since he resigned. I don't know how much clearer we can be. Since he resigned, things at the club are on the up. Right, so again, the thing about it is they rely on success on the park and this is how. If you look at the government today, if you look at the society we live in today, this is what they do. They gaslight you. They say, "Oh, look, Pink Rabbit over here. Just ignore this thing here that we're getting on with in the background. Look, Pink Rabbit, and basically." Our Pink Rabbit is success on the pitch. Now, if we were 9 points behind, he wouldn't have been appointed just now. That wouldn't have happened. So, they know what they're doing. And they were waiting for this moment, and their timing, has been impeccable. It's been a very well-executed manoeuvre, and very well done. Fair play to them for that. They've got every bit of it bang on for minimum fan engagement or impact. And that's the thing that's worrying. They know they're doing something wrong. They know they're doing something the fans don't want. I haven't heard a single person say, "Brilliant, I'm delighted he's back." Everyone's sort of, well, is it going to make a difference? And other people are raging.
Read the CSA statement.
I saw that. But that was Pravda stuff. I
sent that to you last night.
Oh, my God.
I completely agree, John. Adam Beanie-Smith. More hand movements for Kev than folk doing sign language on the telly. Cheers, mate. And I love that. And Robert Little, I'm going to bring this in because this is a fact. Kevin, that's what did happen when Rangers were liquidated. I'll change that wee bit there. Were liquidated and re-entered into the Scottish League at League 2 level. The fans' apathy kicked in. It's a one-horse race. The fans' apathy did kick in, and it suited the board's plan to bring Rangers back to keep the brand Old Firm alive. And those Celtic supporters that disappeared during that time are just as much to blame as those who were sitting in the boardroom. Right. That's done, and I didn't want to speak about that again. I really didn't want to speak about that again. Let's move on. Will Ange stop at 3 arrivals, or do we need more? Paddy, do we need more signings in the January window?
You never really want to say no to that question. You always want to try and sign better players, but I don't know. We've got our business done so early that you feel as if there's room for more. We've got a new centre back. I think they've got a new striker in the way, and God, I've managed to forget Alistair Johnson, a new right back as well. So it's hard to say. They could pull something out their sleeve at any moment. You've got that guy. God, I've forgotten his name. Is it Magby or
Afsha?
Say that again.
Afsha is his name, sort of thing. Mohammed Magadi or something like that. I can't remember, but it's
right.
Afsha.
Aye.
They call him.
That's been the strong link recently. So we could see a move for him, but there are these players that sort of come and go out the paper talk, and then we don't really know whether they're signing until they're announced. He says we've got all our ducks in a row. It's the 7th of December, so we've still got 55 days or something, 56 days to sign all these new players. So I can see us bringing more people in, definitely.
John, is this the time to bring in the centre forward
Yes.
that we actually need after there's been a bit of a misfire, shall we say, going up to Champions League level? There was maybe a struggle to adapt to the Champions League level. So is this the time to try and bring in the striker that we maybe need to take us to that level, and hopefully the next one we bring in is it?
Well, I tweeted back when the Giakoumakis story and everyone was... It's remarkable how quickly people react to stuff like that in terms of, there was one article in the Daily Record and that people had him out the door. Like, literally, that was him done. It's finished. Get rid of him. He's been dreadful. Let's get shot of him. Wait a minute. There was an article 5 minutes ago. Calm yourself. So the JJ story obviously had legs because his agent was trying to punt him to anyone who'd ever showed an inkling of liking for the word right. So he was punting them all over the place. So we know that's a fact, and that story has legs. But the Giakoumakis thing was one article, which was repeated in several different places and gathered a life of its own. As I said at the time, he's got 3.5 years left in his contract. He'll be going when we see he's going. And the notion that would sell him in this window, I think, is mental. Are you telling me in this season, halfway through, when we've got a lead that we need to defend, we're going to sell one of our top strikers and bring in someone who is untested? So unless you're bringing in Messi, then, I'd say that the boy's going to have to bed in, isn't he? The boy's whoever it is going to have to find his feet, bed in, all the rest of it, right? So the notion that we can play with Kyogo, who hasn't been on fire, and Kyogo alone, and maybe throwing a Badan up front and all the rest of it, the notion that we can do that and it's just fine, we just wave goodbye to Giakoumakis during this window. No, we don't. We absolutely don't. Not unless we are getting an outrageous bid and bringing in someone who's a fantastic proven talent who's going to hit the ground running, because that's insane. We're halfway through a season. We need to win this league, and we don't have... the fact that we have strikers who are not firing does not mean you bring in a guy who's not proven and add him to the list of people who are not firing. We need someone who is... found their feet. We need someone who's bedded in. We need someone who knows the system and can score at least domestically, because that's what matters now. So Kyogo and Giakoumakis have been effective relatively domestically. So, neither of them have been, on top form this year, but they have been enough to get us where we are in the league. So, there's no chance we bring in... I mean, the South Korean boy, apparently, I was here the other day, he went from 20,000 followers on Instagram to now 2.5 million followers on Instagram, all based off the fact he was sitting on the bench looking very handsome. And that was basically what it was. He was just, he's apparently he's a bit of a good looking boy. I also heard a story which I did much prefer, that he learned words of Portuguese just so he could tell Ronaldo to F off. Now, I did think that was good. But again, I didn't see him play. I'm in no position to comment on his skills or how good it is, but there's no chance we are selling one of our top two strikers in the middle of a season where we have to win. There's a 9-point gap. That is not enough to secure us yet. Now, again, there's a whole issue we'll come to with Beale and all the rest of it, but that's madness to do that. I mean, do you not think it would be insane to sell Giakoumakis at this point?
I think it would be insane to sell anybody at this point, but that is what is going to happen. I think Giakoumakis has came back in, Paddy, and actually says that I didn't care where these stories are coming from. I'm quite happy at Celtic. And I'm going to say this. I think you'll be the biggest club Giakoumakis ever plays for. And I think he knows that himself, Paddy. I think he does know that himself. And I think it was just bitter and twisted guys who type with free fingers just making things up. No, that's what I think.
I think it was. I think within something like 370 days, he's went from being relegated with Venlo to playing against Real Madrid in the Champions League with Celtic. So it's been a good move for him. And if he actually does want away 3 months after or 2 months after playing against Real Madrid with Celtic, then I think he's been a bit foolish. But I've not seen that, him rubbishing it. I don't know if that's true or not. It was only really that one, as John says, it's only really that one article that's linked him away. There was no clubs mentioned, there was no fees mentioned, there was no quotes. So there's a lot less to it than the Jovanovic story. I think Jovanovic possibly could leave this window. Hopefully he stays to the summer. But no, I think both Giakoumakis and Celtic would be daft to part company now, unless it's an absolutely massive fee, something like 20 million plus. Because if we win the league, it's straight into the Champions League, and that's a 30 million straight into the pot. And do you really want to gamble all that to sell Giakoumakis for 8 million or something? So I think John makes a great point there. I don't think we should sell him, and I don't think it would make a lot of sense for him to leave either.
There's a bit of fantasy football going on in the comments, lads, and I'm going to bring it up because I do want to talk about it. Paul McQuaid mentions big Moussa Dembele. Moussa Dembele would be a sensational signing. Frank Kennedy, we can get Dembele back for £5 million. Michael Ross, Moussa Dembele is subject of a 4.5 million bid from Galatasaray. Surely we can afford that. That was in the papers today where the same journalists that eat cranes for breakfast actually saying Celtic are going to lose out on potential millions and millions and millions of Tim dollars because Galatasaray are going to buy Moussa Dembele for £4.3 million. How sick would they be if we signed Moussa Dembele for £4.3 million, John?
What age is Moussa?
26. Somebody in the comment just tell us.
I mean, I mean, that would be fantastic. I mean, if we could get him back, it would just be absolutely fantastic. What a player he was. What an absolute player he was. Now, I don't know what's happened when he's gone on elsewhere. It seems like he's not really taken off as you thought he might. But, I mean, for us, just sensational. I'd have him back in a heartbeat. And despite what I just said, I'd kick Giakoumakis out the door myself. I'd drag him kicking and screaming.
We're allowed to change opinion, John, in the space of a minute and a half. We're allowed to change opinion. It's entertainment, mate.
Yeah. They just say, completely outrageous. Get him out.
No, get him out.
Yeah, no, that's a cracker. Yeah, but no, I do. Moussa was a tremendous player, tremendous talent. Absolutely loved watching him. His control, his power, his strength, and I mean, could he play in this sort of constant pressing team? A guy like that, you make space for him, But I don't know. I mean, Ange will have looked at him. I'm sure Ange has looked at him. If there's any chance that he's available, they would have looked at him. I imagine he'd have been on much higher wages than we can afford at this point.
Oh, John, you need to put the kibosh on it. I mean, there is some guys, there's some guys in the comments talking sense, Paddy, unlike the three of us sitting live here. I've already brought up that comment. Beach Boys, Michael, we can afford 4.5 million, but not the 70 grand a week, my friend. That is the problem. Even if he's going to Galatasaray, they're going to pay him a Turkish fortune. They're going to pay him a Turkish delight. Yeah. I'll have to get that one in there. I'll have to get that one in there.
No, you didn't. Yes, that was all right.
Sorry. That's one of my dad jokes that my daughter just goes, Dad, you're an embarrassment. I'm like, that's what I'm no. My daughter's in a certain year at school, and she went, Dad, you're a big embarrassment. You're always on YouTube. I went, Hayden, that's my daughter's name. I went, you share a school year with Neil Oliver's son. I'm not the biggest embarrassment on YouTube. Neil Oliver is. His dad. I'm not the biggest embarrassing dad on YouTube. There's somebody in your school year's got a far bigger embarrassing dad than me. John's wondering who Neil Oliver is. Underwater cabbage salesman, get Giakoumakis to pick up Dembele for the airport. it doesn't matter how much we want to dream, Paddy. Musa is probably on a different level, and we will. The South Korean guy seems to be what the buzz is about, but I don't know if I don't know whether the South Korean guy's is just like winding everybody up, saying that he is going to Europe. But surely we can compete with Ferencváros, which is the only team that have been mentioned, Paddy. If we're interested in a South Korean guy, surely we can gazump Ferencváros, yeah.
Aye, we should be blowing teams like that out of the water. Just on the Musa thing, I think if he really is on 70 grand a week at Lyon, he'll be on even more than that at Galatasaray if he moves there. So I can't see that one happening. I'm not really a big fan of bringing players and managers back. I don't feel as if it's ever really worked. I mean, Billy McNeil coming back as manager was maybe the only time really that I can think of. Happy to be corrected, but it's not for me. Even though he is obviously a fantastic player, he sort of went off the boil the last 18 months or so. But I think if you're right and Ferencváros are the only other competitors, then I think we should be winning the race to his signature. The South Korean boy. I think he's quite tall as well.
Has anyone seen him play? Have you seen him play, mate? I haven't seen him play. Has anyone seen him play?
No. I think he scored 2 goals against Ghana, though. I think he scored the 2 South Korea goals against Ghana.
He started off with a brace, yeah, he did, yeah.
I watched him against Ghana, then also watched him against Brazil, which is no a gauge because he didn't really get a sniff against Brazil. But he's 6'2", and he's a bit mobile. He's more mobile than Giakoumakis, and he looks like he's got a better first touch than Giakoumakis. But Giakoumakis is a fantastic first-time finisher. I never saw that in the South Korean guy, but he did look a bit more mobile than the big striker that we currently got. And maybe that's how it is an option, and maybe that's why people are putting two together, getting 5 there. Because I don't know if they're interested in him. It's just again, it's the Ange Pascal. Oh, he came from that side of the world. He's probably looking at this boy. Is it? We don't know. We really, really didn't ken it. As we say, it's just chat, gossip, nonsense.
See when it says, Kev, will Ange stop at 3 arrivals or do we need more? I suppose the question is, we've got a right back who's the third right back that we have currently. We don't know for a fact Juranovic is going out this window. It seems obvious it is, but we don't know for a fact. So we currently have 3 international right backs, right? We've got a central defender coming in who's clearly not, I don't think, supposed to be for the first team this year. He's a young fella who's going to need to bed in. And we've potentially got a striker coming in who also doesn't seem like an obvious first choice, but will be added to the roster. So in terms of do we need more obvious quality? Do we need people who are better than the ones that we have? I would say we need to start, trading up and, doing what we're doing with Johnson and buying that potential, from that.
That's not trading up, though, John. That's just sticking it in the model that we've actually just spent the first 32 minutes slagging.
We talked about it last week in some depth. We've obviously got to buy a better level of potential at a better gradient, and that's what you're hoping we're doing. But do we need more? If you're hoping to strengthen the first team immediately, the answer is yes. But the fact is, as we discussed at great length last week, that we have to buy potential at a higher level. Johnson is pretty much the epitome of that for the moment. As was Juranovic, to be fair. I mean, we got him at a steal, didn't we? Got him at a ridiculous price because of some release clause in his contract.
After Boris, Keena, Maleni, Charlie and the boys CDs.
So, it was fair enough, but I mean, there's no one, when you're saying do we need more, what we're doing is excellent planning, right? So we have enough for the moment, I think, to win the league. And I think we're going to end up winning this league quite comfortably. I think your man Beale is a balloon. I think he will add nothing to them. and a faithless, untrustworthy walker away. As they say, after saying he wouldn't go anywhere, and everyone stick with me, and it's been such a trustworthy guy, and get behind me, and then he walks away at the first opportunity, which suits him down to the ground, to be fair. But I don't see any fans of the Rangers being enthused or over enthused about his return. I think most of them are trying to, even banter wise, are trying to struggle to defend it. So he is. By any measure, as I said before, by any measure, Gio was a much better manager by any measure, because this man's only management statistics are 50-50, at QPR at best. So, I think we've got more than enough to win this league against them. They have. We'll probably come to it. Their contractual situation this year is an absolute disaster. They have something like 12 guys coming to the end of their contracts. It's an absolute shambles. That's what he's inherited. And Gerrard, for all his flaws, was one of the biggest names as a footballer in the game. This guy's nobody. He's absolutely, he's nobody. He's got no reputation in the game to trade on, and he's going to have to try and not only turn around the footballing side, but try and stop these guys that are out of contract at the end of the year. And never mind the guys that are out of contract. There's guys that aren't out of contract that desperately want away. He's basically got most of a team there that are either out of contract or want out the door. It's quite funny
that you're talking about Rangers managers. Last night when I was watching the Portugal-Switzerland game, and there is a reason that I'm talking about this, just because there is a comment that I'm going to bring it back to. And Alan McCoist, who's doing the co-commentators when you're talking about useless Rangers managers there, actually says, when he was talking about the Portuguese manager dropping Ronaldo, he says, when you're a manager, you hope that these big gambles come off. I've had experience of it. And I went, against Brecon, Albion Rovers, and getting beat off Rafe Rovers in the Challenge Cup, mate. You can't equate dropping Ronaldo than playing Lee McCulloch at centre back, mate, or keep on playing Lee Wallace. I just found that.
Your disrespect, Kev, of the Harry Ramsden's brand. Did that man not win that cup?
Was it bang
out of order?
Was it
magic fish and chips? Or was it some petrol something?
The Petrified Cup.
Petrified Cup. Thank you very much.
Was that no?
They beat.
Was that
was Warburton. They beat Peterhead 4-0 in 2016, and they would have done a lower league treble had they not lost to Hibs in the Scottish Cup final, because they won a lower league, a lower league cup. And then they would have won the Scottish Cup as well. Not to be.
Would I give them an extra star? Was that worth an extra star?
I think Beale saying that we need to win everything's an extra star. They had stars for anything.
Yeah. They have definitely won the World Cup. They've won it hands down.
It's knocked out Maeda, so.
I know.
And I saw. The irony, deficiency. I saw there was a Rangers Linfield tweet, from some account, just talking about Maeda's tears was the best thing to see and all the rest, and you're going, but Juranovic is going through. We had two guys in that game. One of them's going through with your boy Barisic, who Maeda scored against because he can't defend. It's like, I don't know what Barisic does at a back post. It's like he's never seen a back post. Anyway, he's the only thing Barisic is lucky for is Abada's not playing in the World Cup. Absolute nonsense comments. But yeah, it's great to see JJ through. I would have much rather had Japan through. It's a far more romantic story.
Japan were more fun.
Croatia.
Japan were more fun.
Are older and jaded, and it's just not as interesting a story. I thought, but I tell you what. You're talking about managerial decisions that backfired. I think taking Maeda off turned that game against him. he took Maeda off really early, and I think that turned that game against him. It gave
understand
Grace time to get back into it.
Understand why they took him off. I really do.
Yeah.
We got a question last week, Paddy. Any players that have impressed in the World Cup that we can actually sign? And this is what got me thinking about the Swiss game last night and Alan McCoist's bizarre comments. Michael McDonald, do you think Shaqiri is within our reach, or am I dreaming? I think Shaqiri looks everything like a modern football player shouldn't he look like, but he's a fantastic wee player. He looks like that wee boy that you saw playing in the Sunday League, which is head and shoulders above everybody else on the pitch, but he's got the build of an outsider. The Shaqiri was fantastic. Where is he playing now since he left Liverpool? Do you ken, Paddy? You ken stuff like that. Me and John Mulney, we're too old.
After Liverpool, that's a hell of a question. I think someone said he's playing in America in the comments. I don't know how true that is, but I'm sure. I mean, he's played for Basel. He's played for Bayern Munich. He played for the Inter Milan. He played for. I made that up. Oh, I can't mind. No, since he left Liverpool, I've got no idea.
We'll go with the comments then. He must be playing in America then. I think a couple of years ago, I think he would have been a great signing for us. Frank Kennedy comes in, thought the Dutch striker looked better than the Korean bloke. If that Dutch striker was it Gakpo? Gakpo? Well, that's why the Dutch striker's gone for 50 million, and we're fighting it out with Ferenc Varos for a guy from South Korea. That's why the Dutch striker looked far better than the guy from South Korea. Robert Ingram. Would love that baldy Moroccan midfielder. He was everywhere on that pitch. I think that's the guy, Arabat, yesterday. He was fantastic yesterday. But we've got our own baldy midfielder who was absolutely fantastic in the World Cup, John, eh? So let's talk about Aaron Moy. Why do we need another baldy midfielder when our one was great? I had to put that to you.
All right, thanks for that, Kev.
Yes, I'll set you up.
Yes, Aaron played very well. Aaron, I because I'm on friendly terms with him, I call him Aaron. So yeah, no, Aaron had a great World Cup. I thought he played very well in that system. He stood out, and he really left a pretty good impression. And I think it was Natasha said, if you looked at the guy objectively and thought we could get him on a free, you think that was a good bit of business. And it is a good bit of business. I've never denied it was a good bit of business for us. I've never suggested he's not a good player. Just said at European level, I said at European level, he is absolutely not at it. He's just not mobile enough, not fast enough, and not athletic enough to be the kind of person we want in our midfield. However, domestically, he will tear you to pieces if you give him time and space. And he has done that consistently this season. He has been excellent. And he is not alone amongst our team and in being shown up as not being up to the job at European level.
No.
So, although I've had a couple of, I've poked a bit of fun at Aaron, and his I'm sure the good thing is he gets free travel in Scotland on the buses, doesn't he? With the rest of the elderly. John. But anyway, sorry, I just couldn't resist. No, he's done great. He's done great for us this year. But as I say, he's obviously not the answer for us in Europe. But then again, as I also just said, you could point that finger at quite a few people. And say they have not proven themselves to be up to it. Now, the other thing about him was obviously just his age, so you're sort of digging at him that way. But he wasn't particularly worse than anyone else. I just didn't think he was really what we were looking for or what we needed, and I was very concerned when Callum got injured and we ended up having to play him. So, how those games would have turned out differently, I don't know. It would have been interesting to see, but things turned out the way they did. So, but look, I mean, he's done himself no harm, and you never know. If we sign him on an extension, you might be able to punt him for a few quid as well. He didn't cost us anything, so happy days. But domestically speaking, he's more than good enough.
I think you're right, John. I think anybody after watching us in the Champions League, and I'm not saying this to be an old boring middle-aged fart, which I am, but every position's up for grabs. We can improve in every single position if we want to get where we're being. Paddy, Paul Andrew Martin, what's the highest level, John / Paddy? Euro Club or World Cup? Paddy, you first.
Sorry.
Champions League, European club, definitely. World Cup, it's a bit of a lottery who your nationality is. So, Champions League.
John,
Champions League for sure. Even the best teams in the World Cup can have maybe 3 or 4 world-class players, and the rest, a mix of bang average and pretty decent. You don't need to have across the board as you do in the club game at the top level. So I don't think there's any question about that.
I'm going to say World Cup just to disagree with the The reason being, international. I think there's a different pressure on international football. You're representing your country, obviously. You're representing the country. I think the teams are more of a mix, and also I think. There's a lot wrong with this tournament. Completely is a lot wrong with this tournament. But I think when you see the pride and the passion, some players will actually say that's the pinnacle of their career playing at a World Cup, no matter of the riches that club football actually brings them. I still think the World Cup, apart from where it is, has still got that allure for players. I do. So I think the standard is there.
Well, I think the emotional standard is there. I think the attraction is there. I think it means a lot more to a lot of guys, but I don't think technically there's any comparison. The teams that, the top European club teams, if you were to take one individually and play them against probably the World Cup winners, would very likely tear them apart. So I don't think there's at the technical level, I don't think that there's a comparison. But in terms of, as you say, Kev, of the allure and what it means to people, the emotion, how important it is, absolutely. Of course it does. A lot of people are very patriotic, and it means a lot to them, far more so than the club ever could. The whole families are behind them. Everyone in their nation's behind them. That's huge. Emotionally, that's massive.
There'll be a few sore heads in Morocco this morning.
I'd say so. What a
result yesterday. That's a great result. Michael, is that Armabat, the boy from Morocco last night, that ripped Hearts apart Fiorentina? Yes, it is. That's who he plays for. He was superb against Hearts for Fiorentina as well.
A good friendly Hearts had the other day, by the way.
Hearts and friendly should never be said in the same sentence.
There's some good footage.
We'll go back to Shaqiri, no Shakira. I did say Shaqiri, I didn't say Shakira. Michael reminds me that he scored for Inter Milan against us. Jay McKelvey comes and played for Inter against us under Ronnie, and Paul Andrew Martin again. He scored the winner. He scored for Inter versus us during Ronnie's time. I'm sure Craig Gordon threw the ball to him. He did. Craig Gordon did through the bottom. Right, lads, that's us been on for over an hour. Everybody's got stuff to be getting on with and getting back to. Like and subscribe. Thanks for all the comments and that. Thanks for just being here on a Wednesday with us. Paddy, hope to see you again soon. I hope to see you next Wednesday.
Hope so.
Aye, so there. John, always a pleasure. You took my and my stuff a bit well there, thank you. and remember, boys, we still never spoke about the bus.
Oh,
that's for next week. Right, lads. Didn't be
that's pointless.
Right, lads. Didn't be bams to each other. See you all later.
Hail.